Last week at SDCC, we got our first look at Section 31. A teaser trailer for the upcoming streaming movie was dropped, and it's rumored to be released in early 2025. We saw a clip for Strange New Worlds Season 3. The news got in that Lower Decks and Prodigy get new seasons. Well, we knew that already from Lower Decks, but anyway. And news dropped as well for the new upcoming live-action show, Starfleet Academy, that some familiar faces are joining that show as well. To make a long story very short, Star Trek is very much alive. This is the review of Champions, and I'm your host, Grandmaster. With me is a powerful panel made up of the finest champions Sakar has to offer. Let me introduce them to you. Voice only, we have Lokismom. How are you?
Doing really well.
That's good to hear. We have the original, Mr. Taylor first. How are you?
I'm excellent.
And last but certainly not least, showing his beautiful face on camera, Merv. How are you, man?
I'm very good.
I'm always happy when you're good, Merv. This is episode 8 of the Star Trek project, where we'll be reviewing Star Trek. All of it in order of release, kinda. And today we're going to talk about Star Trek 4, The Voyage Home. But before we do, I want to ask you all to help us out. Like and share this video and subscribe to our channel. Join our forum at Sakar, sakar.freeforms.net. Find the link to register your account in the description below the video. Click it and become a champion yourself. When we're dealing with movies, we'll set up our episodes of the Star Trek project, as we always do when we deal with movies. 3 rounds, quick thoughts, deep dive, related things, and we round off with a rating. The Voyage Home, the final part of the Trek trilogy. Did it age well? And with that, I mean, is it actually still relevant today? Because it was dealing with environmental problems. And, well, that's actually, to me, that's still relevant. I'm curious what the panel thinks. I start with the age-old question I always do when it comes to movies. Taylor, did you see this movie in the theater back in the day?
You can really skip me on this. I have seen every Star Trek movie in the theater in its initial run.
Okay. I will then, for the next time when we talk about the Final Frontier. Taylor, any quick thoughts on the movie?
Yeah, this movie is spectacular. When you join it with the search for Spock, or excuse me, the Rathcon Search for Spock and A Voyage Home, that trilogy is really just the peak of 1980s sci-fi cinema. It is classic. It is quintessential. It looks gorgeous. The issues involved, environmental issues are always relevant. The specifics change, but there's always relevance to environmental issues. It feels very, very much like an episode of the original series, with the same level of writing and acting and pacing. So when we get into the the specifics of it, I'll go into more detail, but it more than holds up, and it's just a great movie.
Merv, you saw it recently, I guess. I don't know how recently, but what did you think of this movie? It's the final part of the Trek trilogy. What did you think of the Trek trilogy as a whole as well?
Yeah, I watched it maybe a couple of weeks ago, and then I rewatched it in bits and pieces over the last couple of days, just to refresh my memory on it.
Mm-hmm.
I liked it. I liked it quite a bit. I will admit that whenever I heard it as kind of the end of the trilogy, I thought it would be more dramatic, say. Not to say that the, probe potentially destroying future Earth isn't dramatic, but I guess I didn't feel the weight that I felt in the previous 2 films. It was a much more laid back affair, it felt like. Just kind of like a really fun adventure, but fun as the end part of a trilogy isn't the typical thing. But I do love the arc that the crew goes through during these films, and especially with the obvious ending of them entering the new Enterprise was just a great moment to cap it all off. But Yeah, I really had a lot of fun watching it. I agree with Taylor that it was very reminiscent of a lot of the original series episodes, the like specifically the ones where they become like fish out of waters in society that has become 1940s Nazi Germany or whatever. Except in this one, it is at the time present day, what, San Francisco, I guess. So fish out of water, but like at the time, it was like fish out of water, but in current day. So I thought it was all really fun.
Hmm.
Just a fun, kind of laid back adventure.
Yeah, well, it's nice you phrase it like that, fish out of water, because basically that's what they were doing, except okay, whales are not fish, but you get my almost there. Loki's mom, did you watch it in theaters back in the day, or did you catch it later?
No, I saw this one in the theaters. I remember going to see this one because it was so funny. It was just a delight. The jokes, almost all the jokes landed and they were well done. And the humor, I think the existential weight was off the characters. I think that's what Taylor's getting at. So the story itself became more of the fish out of water theme. Here they are landing in 1986 San Francisco, and they have no idea at first what to do. They're kind of walking around, yet they fit right in with 1986 San Francisco, or would today. I mean, the way they were dressed didn't really look that much differently than the people on the street. They actually looked much better. They probably were cutting some style walking down the San Francisco streets, but yeah, it was just a much, like I say, not necessarily lighthearted, because yeah, the fate of the Earth was being decided in this movie, but it was otherwise it was just a lot of an adventure, much more of an adventure where we could enjoy the characters just sort of bringing out their little quirks and personalities and whatnot. And so yeah, it was of the trilogy, and I didn't even think of it as being a trilogy back at the time, but yeah, it very much is so. And yeah, I really enjoyed it all the way.
Good. Merv, in your deeper dive, if can you start with some negatives, or you don't have any, or just small bits and picking it
Yeah,
apart?
I, I guess if there is a negative, I'll say that possibly that because of the previous couple of movies, I expected it to be more combative and dramatic and stuff like that. And this was really just like kind of a delivery mission. You know what I mean? Like go get the pieces, manufacture the thing, travel back. I mean, there was some action, but it was more just like space action, like there's trying to get to warp speed by traveling around the sun. It's not exactly like Klingons shooting you out of the sky or anything like that. So I guess if they're I'm not even going to really call it a negative, but my expectations were more along the lines of the combative nature of the previous couple of films, and then this one was just a 180, which is very refreshing, but it was also like not what I was anticipating. So it took me a minute to get used to the just the way that the movie was going to unravel, in this
Okay.
one.
Okay. Well, what were your highlights?
Uh, so I loved whenever they got to old San Francisco, we'll call it. Um, Whenever they all had their own like little missions and they all broke off, and I loved the chemistry between two characters that were, or two or three, whoever was working together, that were just kind of off doing their own thing. And I feel like you almost rare. I feel like I rarely got to see characters like Chekhov and Ahura like really have moments together, like work together and try to overcome complications or whatever. So it was interesting, that part alone, with the various, I think McCoy and Scotty were my favorite coupling together. I just loved seeing them work because they're all kind of working undercover in this. So they're all actors pretending to be characters who are pretending to be people in this world. And it was like a nice, like, kind of meta third degree experience just to watch. And there was so many like little moments of humor where like Spock is there's the annoying punk guy on the train or whatever, and Spock like Merv pinches him and he falls asleep, and everyone applauds because he was just being loud and annoying. And then, like I said, Scotty and McCoy, whenever they're talking to the plexiglass people, I just, there was so many moments during their dialogue that I was just like smiling and laughing, because just Scotty was like overselling everything, and McCoy even had to rein him back, like, you're getting too deep into your character, like chill a little bit. So I thought all that was really fun. I liked Catherine Hicks, who plays the doctor, the whale lady. I recognized her immediately from a couple things. She was the mom in the original Child's Play movie from 1988, which I'm a big horror fan, so that was the first thing. And then I was like, she's also the mom from Seventh Heaven, which was a show like in the late 90s, early 2000s or whatever, which my sisters all watched. So I immediately recognized her from that. And I thought she was really good here. I liked her in Kirk's kind of romantic side plot, which was again another thing that was very reminiscent of the old original series episodes. You know, it seemed like every half dozen episodes or so they'd pair him off with somebody. You know, a little less cave sex in this one, but
The hookup of the week.
Yeah, exactly. Which I thought was
got
nice.
to first base on that one.
Yeah. And I had a few questions later on, like, well, she was really eager to jump like 300 years into the future. Didn't she have any loved ones or family or friends or anything? I guess the whales were her life's ambition. So that was fine. And, I don't know that I'd be able to turn down jumping ahead 300 years and just experiencing that world either. And then just overall, like I said, I just think the film just really had a sense of lightheartedness about it that the previous films in the film series at least didn't have, or at least not fully, not to this extent. It really was just like a comfortable, enjoyable, relaxed sci-fi adventure, as opposed to worrying about whether or not characters are going to die or people are going to blow up. And like I said, obviously the Earth was at stake, but it never really felt the weight of that, I don't think. But
yeah, you never had the idea that they were going to fail this mission.
Yeah, you were almost certain. There was a moment whenever you're like, I couldn't tell if the whale was dead, the one whale was dead whenever they came back to the future, or what was going on, because it wasn't moving. The other one was, and I was like, oh, what's this going to happen? But yeah, you never really felt like there was a possibility they were going to fail, no matter if they were falling apart in the sun's gravitational pull or not. So very fun movie.
Okay, cool. Lokismom. The most fun part of the whole movie for me was that Kirk decides to send a Russian guy in the height of the Cold War to get nuclear material from a U.S. What's called a ship, nuclear ship. And that in 1986. That you lived that era as an adult, like Taylor did. I was a teenager and not from America, so I can't really say if that's was a major thing in the movie theater back then, but you can.
Well, yeah, this was 1986, so by then Gorbachev was in power in the Soviet Union, and he was very much what they call glasnost and opening up to the West, and he really made huge overtures, put himself at risk doing that. So yeah, I think the fact that it's Chekhov's there, he's what nuclear weapons, nuclear, and the policeman says, "What that?" This guy with a Russian accent, whatever. But it's San Francisco, So anyway, yeah, that was funny. But I think it was because by then the United States and Russia was at a good place, as good as it could be, I guess, during those years. I think it wasn't as I would think that the people in Russia, when they saw the movie, they would laugh at it too. They would just find it very humorous. So yeah, I thought that was really well. I mean, otherwise, as far as the negatives and whatnot, I don't really have a lot of negatives. Actually, I can't even think of any, to tell you the truth. I think it was just everything kind of clicked as far as this movie goes. The one thing I did love was talking about Kirk and a woman in every port, sort of captain. He's there, and you really don't have any romantic. There's a little flirtation going on through the movie, but nothing romantic. It's only at the very end when she's there, And he says, well, you know, can I get your number? And, you know, well, you know, I'll find you. And she's like, she's already found herself a whole new world. She doesn't have time to spend any more time with Captain Kirk. She's going to enjoy her new future and all the new opportunities that have just opened up for her. So I thought that she's the character who's the one human from 1986 that's going to find out the truth about them. And I thought that was really handled real well, how they built that character, because at first when he finally tells her, she's like, oh, come on, you know, yeah. And she's, you know, I'm another loser, another nut job I've come across. And then, of course, when she finds out that the whales have been taken out from under her, they're on their way to Alaska. And then she panics. At that point, she sort of, she lets her, she takes faith in what Kirk has told her. She makes a leap of faith. Let's put it that way. In her panic, in her desperation, she runs to him for help. And I had spoken last time on the Search for Spock, how this kind of had this biblical-esque type theme. The Spock dies and then he resurrects. And in this movie, it's more like, here's the crew. They're out back spreading Star Trek spirit, at this time into the past, into 1986. So I think there again, it sort of touches a little bit on that now here they are going forward to save the world, you know, to bring the good news of Star Trek, or of a better future to the world, to a world that needs it. Maybe we need it more now than we did in 1986. But yeah, I liked how that was handled. It was really well done. And hats off to, I guess Leonard Nimoy was one of the, he was the director, and I think he was one of the co-writers again on this. So my hats off to him again, because he really invested himself into Spock and into Star Trek, and maybe had been reluctantly so in the beginning, but over time he realized who Spock was and what that character meant to so many millions of people, and he carried the ball real well.
Mm-hmm. Taylor, did you ever in a million years think that a Vulcan could mind meld with a whale?
Can't be worse than a Horta, I guess.
Yeah.
This movie is, I mean, it's so good. First thing I'm going to point out about this movie is a lesson that, first of all, a lot of people who work in Hollywood today need to watch this movie to learn about a little word called pacing. There is so much in this movie, and it is all laid out and paced so well, and it is all tied together so well that it's really brilliant. From the very beginning at the Federation hall or whatever with the Klingon ambassador and Sarek, which ties us back into the previous movie, brings everybody up to speed. And then we go to Vulcan, where we establish that Spock is still rebuilding his memory, so he's not 100% yet. They travel back home. The probe, the whole issue with the probe is established, what it's doing to other ships, what it starts doing to Earth. They arrive home. They make the decision to go back in time. They go back in time. They have a whole bunch of character moments, which are a lot of fun, as Loki's mom was talking about, all the fish out of water stuff, the learning their environment. They have all the character moments, but then they also have the find the whales, get the material to build the tank, get the nuclear material to fix their Klingon spaceship, get Chekhov out of the hospital, get the whales, stop the whaling ship, take the whales back to the future, save the Earth, and wrap it all up in a nice tight bow back where they get charges dropped and they get a new Enterprise. You know, all in 2 hours. All in 2 hours. You don't need a 3.5 hour movie to do all of that, and it was just fantastic.
Now that you mention it, and Avengers Endgame, we watched that movie recently, 5 years ago or something. It reminds me a lot of the Voyage Home. It only took twice as long to get it done.
No, you're exactly right. You're exactly right. Made a few more characters in the Endgame. So
Yeah, okay.
I guess. But
it's a lot like Endgame. Or I should say Endgame is a lot like the Voyage Home. It has also those pair-ups, different missions, going back in time, getting the stuff together. I mean, it's Save the Earth. It's a lot alike.
Yeah, it is very similar. And I agree with Loki's mama how Leonard Nimoy did a great job. Now he had directed The Search for Spock, but he was hardly actually in that movie, whereas he was a major character in this movie while also directing it. But this movie again, it's got those great quintessential 1980s industrial light and magic special effects, and the tone of this movie, especially when they're in San Francisco in the past, has got a lot of that Steven Spielbergian E.T. type adventure feel to it, especially like when they're getting Chekhov out of the hospital and the police are chasing them and, bumping into the invisible spaceship and taking off. And again, stopping the whaling ship and all that beautiful music in the score, uplifting. So I felt a lot of that, like you said, that E.T. Goonies type adventure feel to it, like from Steven Spielberg. And there was also some some Star Wars type influence in it as well. What else about this movie? The acting was all really great. Like Merv mentioned, all the character moments where the different members of the crew were working together. Scotty and Bones, I agree, were fantastic. Catherine Hicks, she was kind of a staple of TV in the 1980s. Before she did Seventh Heaven and other things, she was a star in the TV spin-off movie of the Bad News Bears. She also starred in Tucker's Witch later in the 1980s. She spent a lot of time on Ryan's Hope, which was a soap opera. She did like 200 plus episodes of that. But then, of course, she spent, I think how long was Seventh Heaven? 7 or 9 seasons. It was a real long time that she kind of made her mark there. But she did a lot of guest starring roles on a lot of TV shows as well. And I think she did a really good job in this movie. And when she got to, the 23rd century, which she loves her whales, and she was going to be the whale expert for the entire world with the only 2 whales. So I guess that's kind of a promotion. So I guess she kind of liked that idea. But she probably realized, hey, I can find a lot of men around here, my own age. And by my own age, I don't mean 300 years old. I mean not half the age of Captain Kirk. Okay.
Yeah, I love that.
But that's the thing Hollywood does all the time: put all men and younger women together. And if you look up their age differences, it's kind of creepy. But yeah, let's just say the 1980s were a different time when it comes to that kind of stuff.
Absolutely.
Any negatives on this movie?
No, I got no negatives. It was just wonderful. I put it right up there with the previous 2.
Mm-hmm.
Again, just beautifully made, beautifully directed, well acted, paced. A great story. Is how everything just ties together, and there's really no loose ends. There's no cutting corners that I ever noticed, and I've seen it quite a few times. Now they did break their rules about messing around with the past, but the whole world was at stake. So and it was kind of a lighthearted story, so we'll cut them some slack on that one.
Yeah, and I don't know how much effect getting 2 whales out of the claws of a whaling ship will have on the future of the Federation. But anyway, Loki's mom, you had a follow-up.
Yeah, there was the thing that sort of it started with the Wrath of Khan when Khan is quoting Moby Dick. So we have the whale, the whole thing there. While there's no whales in the first 2 movies, those themes are sort of the book and of revenge and of Ahab and all that. It carries over. So when we get to this movie, then it really becomes about whales. I mean, there really are whale hunting, but they're doing it from in a science fiction space age type manner rather than, except toward the end where then they do confront the whaling ship out there because I guess George and Gracie were, which by the way, if people know George and Gracie, that was George Burns and Gracie Allen. They were a husband and wife comedy duo that was popular probably way back in vaudeville and up into the 1950s, and they had a TV show. Anyway, that's where their names come from. But they're destined to die with those whalers out there because, and I guess I'm assuming that they were from like Norway or somewhere because that language, or Sweden. But of course, that was their whaling was still 1986 part of their economy. Thank goodness a lot of that has changed since then. I think more awareness about whales losing, and that was what they were trying to stress very much, going back to the liberal sort of Gene Roddenberry ethos of environmental protection, of concern about other animals. And plus, they actually made the leap that I think in 1986 wasn't quite as established then, that whales and so many other animals on planet Earth are intelligent. They have an intelligence. Maybe we don't understand. Maybe it's not on the same level of ours, but they are intelligent. They're thinking beings, and
Yeah.
a lot of them can recognize themselves in mirrors and whatnot. They have a self-awareness that I think uh, maybe as humans we need to start looking at and being a little bit more careful about, because we share this planet and we can destroy it. We could destroy it much more so than in a science fiction movie. We have the capabilities of doing it ourselves. So I think that was, but it wasn't done in a heavy-handed manner. I think they did it in a way of getting their message across without slapping you in the face with it. And I think that's maybe one of the criticisms that we do nowadays, that we kind of jump the gun on that sometimes and judge it. But yeah, I think they got their environmental message across, and hopefully maybe back then 1986 that movie made a difference to us today in 2024, in the 21st century.
Yeah, time flies. I wish we had still had years starting with 19. That would be better for me. But anyway, I guess. Yeah, well, we all love this movie. I also love this movie. There's not much more to say, so we'll just move on to a rating for Star Trek 4: The Voyage Home. And I'm starting with you, Lokismom.
Well, I gave Khan and then Search for Spock a 9. I'm going to do the same thing with this one, and then I'm going to bump it up to a 0.5 just for the overall series, the trilogy there, that how well it was done. And I think it should be recognized as one of the great sci-fi trilogies that came out in the 20th century. So 9.5.
Okay. Taylor?
I give this movie a 9 out of 10.
No. Simple and high. Merv?
Just one little other thing that I really enjoyed was the when they're in the Federation meeting hall or whatever, there's all kinds of costumes of various alien races, and I really just enjoyed seeing all the different, they weren't on screen very long, but like you saw like a cat-like creature and like the ones with the blue horns, and it's just all those familiar faces from especially like the animated series. I thought that was a really nice touch. And I'm going to go 8.5 out of 10 for this one. 8.5.
Yeah. Well, I'm with Taylor. I'm gonna go 9 out of 10. I absolutely adore this movie. I think it's just great. I don't have anything else to say about it. You guys already did that for me. So yeah. That will conclude this month's episode of the Star Trek Project. We hope you have enjoyed our discussion today. If you did, help us out. Like and share this review, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. And join our forum at sakartafreeforums.net. Again, there's a link to register in the description below. Click it and you become a champion yourself. Episode 9 of the Star Trek Project, we will be discussing Star Trek V, The Final Frontier. This is where we deviate from the release order, because if we would follow that, we would with Star Trek The Next Generation Season 1, but we won't. We will finish the original series movies first. So 2 more, and then we start on The Next Generation. Be ready for that. And, well, we're dropping a brand new podcast as well this weekend, dealing with the Marvel Studios presentation at last week's SDCC. So for now, I want to thank you all, also on behalf of our champions, and wish you to live long and prosper. Bye.